Hello, my name's Alexis, and I'm the Academic Integrity Coordinator here in the Office of Academic Integrity. In our office, I serve as a support and guide for our students throughout the academic integrity process, but more broadly, I'm definitely encouraging students to think about academic integrity as they're producing work for their classes and throughout their journey at American University. Today in this PowerPoint, you're going to see some scenarios about academic integrity that have kind of come through our office, things that I've heard from students, and things that I've thought about as a graduate student myself at American University. So following those scenarios, I'm going to kind of pop in the corner of each slide and give you some advice, some food for thought, things to just think about as you move through your academic journey here at a university. Of course, if you ever need to reach out in the future, I'm a familiar face at our university, and my email is right here next to my face. And you can feel free to reach out for any advice, support, some questions you might be having, anything you need that I can help you with, I'm here to do so. So I look forward to working with you guys throughout your journey here, and have a great semester. To help us go through our first couple of scenarios, we're going to be joined by our friend Anand, who is a student here at American University and also helps our office out on our Student Academic Integrity Committee. Take it away, Anand.
So now we're going to get into some examples of what different academic integrity violations look like at a general level. So we have some scenarios for you all. First one being, personally, I would never let a robot write my paper for me. However, I heard ChatGPT is helpful in refining my thoughts and helping to put together my bibliography. I won't lie, I haven't used a specific citation style since high school, and honestly, teachers and professors don't care that much. Finals are really rough, so thankfully I was barely able to finish my paper. While reading through it, however, I realized that I didn't include citations. So I used ChatGPT to suggest sources related to my topic. And so while this is a very easy solution, ChatGPT oftentimes puts a random author's last name, a random date, and a random article title together as one citation. However, like Michael Smith did not write about dogs, let's say. Michael Smith actually wrote about cats. ChatGPT cannot tell the difference. It just puts together these different elements as one citation. So while you may think you're getting an accurate bibliography, professors will check to make sure that your sources are legitimate, and this is a very easy way to get caught.
Yeah, so upon first glance at the scenario, there are a lot of immediate alarm bells going off here from the perspective of somebody that works in the academic integrity office. First things first, refining my thoughts, that notion of an outside source kind of adjusting ideas and thoughts and reproducing words that are not yours. What does that mean? So that could mean anything from a range of ChatGPT took my sentence and made it into a paper, and it could go all the way back to it just gave me simple grammar suggestions that I used, and I took a few here and there, but it didn't really rewrite my whole entire paper. Regardless, these are both kind of alarming practices, and we want to make sure that you know what your professor's expectations are. Does your professor think that you're using these tools for like simple help? Do they even know that you're using these tools? Or do they assume that you're making these choices about language all entirely on your own? I'm going to go with the idea that they assume that you're making these choices entirely on your own. And so if you're not doing that, then I definitely want you to go to your professor, let them know what tools you're using, make sure it's all okay, and then go from there feeling confident in the work that you're doing, knowing that you're not breaking any kind of code about academic integrity in the process. Another thing to note here is citation styles. I mean, I know there's tons of styles. We all didn't, use the same styles throughout school, and it can be kind of annoying to have to deal with that. And so you kind of want to go to a tool and just have it do it for you. And, in hindsight, that seems like it's a solution there, but it's actually not, because there's a difference between getting help in figuring out whether a source is like italicized or underlined or where you need to adjust that date in the citation. And there's a big difference on that and getting help from a tool that gives you citations to use in place of you actually choosing and reading them yourself. So again, we all know our professor's expectations are that you're doing your work entirely on your own. And so if an outside source is reproducing citations for you, making up things, and there's no kind of where to attribute that in your paper, that's going to be a red flag for you for sure. On the subject of throwing things into your paper, that's not how we use sources, right? So do not randomly insert sources throughout your paper that do not match with direct ideas or quotations from your paper. That will definitely flag some sense of plagiarism to your reader and your professor, and it outlines that a source is saying something that it's not actually saying because you're pulling it from a different area. That's probably the biggest problem of all three of these, because it's hard to see how that could ever be a responsible decision, and we want to be making responsible decisions, people. So yeah, just a few things to flag there, and general advice would be to always make sure it's okay with your instructor on the tools that you're using to produce your work.
Now that we've gone through one general scenario, let's go through another, and this is actually a very silly mistake that a lot of students do. So I purposely took this class because I have previous knowledge about this topic. I took a similar course last semester, learned a lot, and so I thought I could just use the same knowledge this semester. I also thought it would just be an easy A because it's an elective and doesn't necessarily count toward my major. And so with that thinking, I saw that one of the first discussion posts was the exact same content as something that I learned right before break. So I went to Google Docs, found my answer to the previous discussion post, copied and pasted it for this new discussion post. What's the harm in doing that? It was my own work, and I was able to finish the assignment in 10 minutes.
The idea of self-plagiarism is one that students often ask me about, and I would love to explain why. There's something here to reconsider whenever you're trying to utilize work that you might have used and created on your own at one point in time for something new. So previous knowledge in general is great, but I want to suggest and really encourage you to cite experts so that you can get more authority as both a writer and a researcher. It's kind of why we're here at the university, to learn new things, and you can have previous knowledge on a subject, but also it's really helpful to kind of expand that knowledge with experts and make sure you're doing your own research, and reproducing content is just not that. The code says that all work should be your own. Faculty therefore assume that you're doing and submitting work in response to the exact assignments that they're giving you. So whenever you're pulling from a previous assignment, a previous class, something you've done in the past, that's not really producing 100% original content to this particular subject and assignment. This also helps them offer feedback that's immediately responding to your most current abilities, not abilities in the past and things that you're not expanding your knowledge on. This is key to your learning and improvement. If you submit a paper you wrote last year that ignores all the things that you've learned in that time period since. And the idea of self-plagiarism is a little bit weird because you're not exactly stealing the ideas from somebody or copy and pasting them from a book. They're definitely your ideas and you created them at one point in time. The dishonesty here, and kind of what flags for us, is the context. So your professor again assumes that you are not going back through your files and reusing your work for their assignment. So if that's what you're doing, that's kind of dishonest to what they're expecting from the assignment. And that's kind of where that falls into place there. If you have previous work that you think is relevant and you want to build on, that's great. And you should definitely just talk to your professor about it. They might want you to use your previous work and then allow you to cite that in your current paper. But just letting them know where this work is coming from, kind of where you're basing some of your ideas, is just going to be really helpful to avoid you falling under plagiarism and ending up in our office. So yeah. As I'm reading through this last scenario, I kind of want you to put on your academic integrity lens and think about some things that you would flag given all that we've talked about so far. So maybe some things that you would say, I would have done that differently, or just some general advice that you would give, and kind of compare that to what I say in the following slide. My professor constantly encourages group work. She says that this gets our minds moving and allows us to work through tough questions together. I have formed friendships in the class because of this, and at this point we often get together after class to work on our assignments. This class seems so chill and the midterm is open book. Should be a breeze. We met up at the library and did the midterm on our own, but we brainstormed a few thoughts here and there. I ended up finishing super quickly, but noticed my friend was struggling a bit. She asked if I could help her with some ideas for one of the question responses, but I just gave her my paper and said to use it as inspiration, but to make sure that you do not use my ideas as her own work. She only used it for like 10 minutes, so what could she really have gotten done in that amount of time as far as copying and pasting and stuff like that? So I'm like not super worried. I'm just glad that I knew the answer enough to help, you know? There are certainly some things to flag in this scenario surrounding inappropriate collaboration and kind of where those lines get blurred. The first thing to note is brainstorming a few thoughts throughout this assignment or midterm. So what does that exactly mean? There's usually a clear expectation on what a professor expects from your work during assignments or midterms or any kind of exam in general. And that usually falls under doing work that is 100% your own individual work. Now, if they have specific guidelines outlining the use of collaboration through the assignment or midterm, that's one thing, but most likely they don't really want you to work together to produce content for their exams or assignments. So if you are doing that, then definitely I would encourage you to talk to your professor about your style of work and how that looks for them and what they allow in their class. Another thing to look at is what kind of help does your friend want and what is that exactly going to do for them? So if what they're doing is copying and pasting something that you wrote and produced on your own into their work, that's going to flag for your professor that this was a sense and circumstance of inappropriate collaboration, and that is definitely a violation of the Academic Integrity Code. So I know it's uncomfortable to tell people no if they're asking for help, but definitely just ask yourself, like, what is this going to look like for me, and what are they exactly looking to do with my work? 10 minutes, I know it seems like no time and they could just skim and kind of get some ideas and get their mind moving on their own. However, that is plenty of time for them to copy and paste some things from your work into their own. Now, whether that be their exact intention, perhaps they don't really know it's only a few words, that can't be plagiarism in itself. That definitely falls under inappropriate collaboration in the code, and you're going to want to avoid doing that. So usually the best advice would be to not really collaborate unless you are specifically told that you're allowed to do so. Because you really don't want to be in a circumstance of inappropriate collaboration, even if you were the one that was giving the work and not using it as your own. It's important to think about what the point of the exam is. Is it to get it done and get a good grade? No, that's not exactly the big picture of the exam. It's more to test what you know and how you work through the course and just kind of see where you're at. If it's not a collaboration exam, then it should be a representation of what you're capable of doing by yourself and not at the hands of somebody else supporting you. One way to test out whether a situation is a good idea or a bad idea would be to ask yourself, would I be willing to tell my professor how I produced my work? Would they be okay with how I produced my work? If the answer is no, then I would probably consider your actions and just think about how you're doing your work and how you can better do it with academic integrity in mind. I hope that these scenarios have helped you think about academic integrity in a different way. And when in doubt, you can always reach out to our office. We're here to help with support, advice, kind of practices and strategies to practice academic integrity throughout your studies. Above and to our left are some tips and takeaways for our students. And of course, I'm always here. You know where to find me. And I wish you all the best of luck. And please come back to this video if you ever need to kind of share some ways with other people about how to practice academic integrity inside and outside of the classroom.